Hi, everybody, and welcome to Burning Bridges. Søren here. Today's topic is Soviets again, surprise. We're going to try and see if we can do a power ranking on Soviet units and why you would take some and leave some out. And to not just have me and my two friends talk about it all the time, I've reached across the globe to Simon. Simon, you're in New Zealand, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's going to be interesting to see how you do things and if you have some different favorite units. But let's just jump in and see how it goes. So
Brilliant.
I asked you, which book is your go-to if you're going to do a Soviet list? Are you going to do Fortress Europe, Bagration, Berlin?
You did ask, and I had a good think about it, but not for very long. The answer came to me quite quickly, and and my personal preference is the Bagration book. There's a couple of reasons why. One, it's been out a longer time than Berlin. It's more advanced than Fortress Europe. There's a couple of things that Berlin doesn't offer that Bagration does give me. There's the troops in Berlin are a bit expensive for what they do. It's a different place. It sort of curves more into the Allied or German way of playing, which to me is a bit different. So while the M476 Will Shermans, the Lend-Lease ones that the Soviets use look really cool, I wanted to use T-34s and I wanted to use IS-2s and stay with that as much as possible. There are caveats, of course. There's one major caveat, which we'll talk about later on. But having as much as possible Soviet equipment was one of the big things that attracted me to playing in Bagration. And maybe just there was a little personal thing too to see if I could change the meta that people talk about worldwide. There's a desire to see what could and couldn't be done with the Soviet lists. I settled on Bagration. Some really cool lists in there.
So if you had to pick one unit from the book, like leave everything else out, what would you pick? What is the best unit in the Bagration book?
This answer did not take much time for me to think about. I love the IS-2. I think it's a brilliant tank. It is as a player, I'm quite aggressive, and I love to play infantry armies quite often. I want to be able to assault as quickly as possible, and I find the IS-2 is got good armor, got good speed, got great skills. It has it's quite cheap, relatively. 30 points for about 4, I think, or 22 for 3. And it's brilliant for assaulting. Just driving them into the opponent. Side armor 8. A lot of infantry targets you can get around guns as well. Downside, of course, everything is aggressive in Bagration, pretty much. So as long as you plan your turns and you have a plan in mind, you can negate the 3+ hit. I know a lot of people don't like the IS-2 because it can't really take on tanks head to head. It can sometimes, like slow firing, short range. It's like a big shotgun. But AT-14 is still pretty good.
If you hit something, it's good. It's good.
Exactly, yeah. And because the targets factor is taken into account for shooting, not your own skill, I could be shooting at them with Panthers or Tigers or whatever. It's still going to be the same to hit chance, unless, of course, I'm moving. But for a fast force to get in the face of the opponent, I think IS-2s are great. And they look really nice. They're really nice models.
They do. They are very well made. Do you have the plastic or the resin models?
I have plastic ones, yeah. I got into playing Russians a little too late to get any resin ones. I mean, I resisted playing Russians for a very long time, and I've been playing the game for almost 25 years now. So
That's quite a
it,
bit.
yeah, it's a very long time, and yeah, the Russians always seem to me in the older versions push play win type thing. It was more
Yeah.
skill in playing against the Russians than it was using the Russians.
Yeah.
That has definitely changed
Yeah.
in more recent times. So the challenge is there for like I felt the challenge was there for me to pick it up now.
Yeah.
Hence only plastics
Super.
because that's what was
Yeah.
available.
That's
Yeah.
cool. It's they make good plastic models.
Yes.
So that's your must pick unit. So what else? Do you have any other tanks you like from the Bagration book?
I do. I really like the T70. It's when I'm looking for a small unit that can take on reconnaissance vehicles. It itself is not a reconnaissance vehicle. Obviously, it doesn't have spearhead or
No, no.
scout, but it's got an 87 gun, 4+ firepower, 4 frontal armor. The hero ones in particular are quite good in groups of 3.
Yeah.
They're nice for just holding a flank, threatening infantry, going for guns and artillery, especially self-propelled artillery.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are overworked, so the slow firing problem pops up again. But you can plan for that. They're not your main fighting force. Obviously, they're there to cause problems for the enemy
Yeah.
rather than win the game for you head to head. Yeah,
Yeah. And front armor 4 means that they need to shoot with something real, right? You can't just
exactly. Yeah, and if
empty
they're
it into
shooting
the.
at my T70s, then my IS2s might still be alive.
It's always there's always something else. Yeah.
Yeah,
So the biggest tank in your arsenal and the smallest tank in your arsenal. Do
that
you have
is
any?
right.
Do we have any love left for the T-34?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
It is so iconic, and like I said earlier, wanting to play with as much Russian equipment as possible, you can't go past the T-34-85. I mean, I went past the T-34-76 very quickly. But the T-34-85 does a job. 8012 is good. And if you have enough hulls, then the amount of shots that you can put out with 8012, you can trade a bit.
So
Um,
what is enough hulls for you? Like you wouldn't say
uh,
the hero version.
Yeah, one I do like the hero list, and I have played around with the Ford detachment T-34-85s.
Mhm.
It's I find it very much a you have to get everything right list to win
Mm,
with.
mm.
All of the parts work together, and if one or two of the parts drop out, then the list is very
Yeah,
unbalanced. Um, we have had some fun times with the Hero T-34-85. My good friend Chris Otten, we play as a pair at Panzerschreck, which is the
yeah,
world's oldest Flames of War event.
yeah,
Um, it's the benefit of being here in Aotearoa. And a couple of years ago, we did quite well with a dual Hero T-34-85 and
yeah,
Engineer Sapper list,
yeah,
and that was fun. But again, because we could take the whole Hero tank company,
yeah,
we had all of the ones that you could list.
yeah,
It was 13, I think.
yeah,
But for day to day list use, I actually like using the basic T-34-85 company
yeah,
and having 6 or 7 tanks in that platoon.
yeah,
They still hit on threes. Um, six a frontal armor 6 is good enough to avoid a lot of light anti-tank, medium
yeah, yeah.
anti-tank, but not good enough for anything sort of above 10, 80,
No,
10. and they are green skilled. So their assault is, I've used them in assault, but it's more for the fact of trying to get the enemy to fail their morale test to
Yeah, yeah.
counterattack rather than actually
Killing
killing
stuff.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they move 12 inches. They have a great terrain dash. They have a 2+ cross. And if you use crosshair as a unit order, they automatically cross.
Yeah.
And they are brilliant for running through forests or across terrain that people weren't expecting and getting in the flank. Yeah, they're great. And they're a great reserve platoon as well.
Yeah.
Coming on in some maneuver missions, 6 tanks appearing with 80-12.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
It
great.
has to be. You have to consider that when you play, that you
Yes,
all of a
yeah.
sudden will get these in the flank. So
Mm.
that's your 3 tank units. Let's move on to the. Do you want to take artillery?
Artillery, all right. The Russians have a lot of artillery options, but there isn't much that differentiates them. So you've got the 76 and the 122 and the 152 guns. You've got the 82mm mortars and the 120mm mortars. And this is in Bagration. Obviously, in Berlin, there's a couple of other
Yeah, that's a,
choices. Like
yeah,
we've had discussions about the 160mm mortars and how to
yeah,
make
yeah,
them. The
yeah,
PTSD is real, thinking about sticking those things together. But there are two options that I always try and include in my lists. One is the 82mm mortar company platoon.
yep, yep,
You could they're always present in the lists that I look at. They are a core element, so great for force morale,
yep,
and you can get them in 6 or 9.
yep,
Don't worry about 3. 6 is great. 4 points for 6 of them. You're re-rolling hits. You are always having to deal with the fact that their skill is trained, so ranging on 5s
yeah,
normally. But if you are the aggressor, you can set your artillery up as you need. Pinning is great. They do it cheaply.
yeah,
The other unit is the self-propelled Su-76s, and they're a great unit that always do double duty in my lists. If they're there, they're primarily there as artillery,
okay,
and you
yeah,
can get, frontal armor 4, 89, like the T-70s. They can fend for themselves against marauding
yeah,
light tanks and armored cars. They've got a 72-inch artillery range, which is
yeah.
great.
So
On
that's
a,
everywhere. Yeah,
yeah, especially if you set them up centrally. Again, they're trained, and I think they're about 10 points for 4 hulls. So
yeah,
not too bad points. The second part of using them is that 18-9 gun. I don't mind sending my mobile artillery off to hunt things. Like if someone's getting a little bit cheeky about how they try and maneuver around my force, the Su-76s can do a job.
yeah.
You know,
And the Tank 9 is just great for most things.
it's almost perfect.
Yeah,
80-10 would be better, but 9 covers a lot of the things that you would need for a frontal armor 4 vehicle
yeah,
that was out on your flank or something. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So it's good bang for your buck, right? Because all the
Yes.
other stationary guns, they are 8 points. The Katyusha is 8 points. All the other up, the 76 and the
Mm-hmm.
122, they're all 8, where you can get the cheap mortars and they're a bit more expensive your Su-76s, but they
That's right.
all of a sudden can do something else.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
good
They
choices.
can
And
hold.
now
They can hold an objective.
they can.
You know,
Ish. Yeah. Yeah.
given scenario. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the backbone of Any Soviet army? The infantry? What are we looking at here? Why
I
should I pick?
I like Soviet infantry. I like how they're so different from other nations. And as I look at my cabinet next to me, I've got Germans, British, Americans, all sorts of different types of them. The Russians are always different, whether it's their high morale, their cheapness of numbers, the cost, it's or their high saving throw for some of the worst times.
Yeah.
That looks bad and is, but it's
Oh, thank
fun.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's fun. Like
Yeah.
it's different. It's something to play
Yeah.
that's different from the other stuff. And 28 stands coming at you. If they've got a 4-up stave, that's still a lot of shots that you have to expend on trying to
Yeah.
kill them.
Yeah.
But I do. There are a couple of choices that I have that I really like. The first one is the Sapper engineers. Again, quite different from
Anything
from
else?
the
Yeah.
Russian things. All submachine gun armed. They're fearless. They've got veteran skill. They have body armor, which is something you don't get much. The extra save in the assault step is brilliant when you can remember that you have that special skill. There have been many times where after the game I've thought, oh,
Oh. Yeah.
almost every game.
Yes.
They have Panzerfaust, which is excellent. It turns an infantry unit into something quite a bit more self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Being able to have things like Panzerfaust. They have the smoke pots as well for covering open terrain. I played a game yesterday, badly, but I got to use the smoke pots to cover terrain to cover that open field, so I could get into a position to assault.
Yeah.
I will say that my opponent played very well,
Yeah.
and I didn't. But it was a fun game. That was the best thing.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, and I've looked this up a couple of times, and I don't think I've seen this being disproved, but in Bagration, the card for the RPG-6 anti-tank grenades can
Yeah.
be combined with the
With the,
Panzerfaust
yeah.
Sapper
They
engineers.
they stopped it in Berlin, but you can still do it in Bagration.
Yeah,
So they can
it,
be really, really tough.
that's right. And it means that any tanks that want to assault you, you've got a very good chance of seeing them off. You will take
Yeah.
casualties. You're Russian.
But yeah,
Yeah,
there'll be another ego around.
yeah, that's right. The other thing that I really like about the Sapper engineers is that the IS-2s are core support.
Yeah.
And I
So
think as a synergy, that is very cool that I can get two of the things that I really like. And it helps strengthen the formation as a whole.
yeah.
Yeah. So that they would be my top pick.
They would be the. So do we have any in second place, or is it just
Oh,
always go Sapper?
well, let's go down. We've got second, third, and fourth. We can do some honourable mentions
Yes, let's do
afterwards.
that.
Yeah. So second place would be the Hero Motor Rifle Company. They are still aggressive. We just have to deal with that.
Yeah.
But they are 10 stands for 12 points, and they're, in the old parlance, rifle MG teams. So they've got
Yeah.
Ratify
Yeah.
2. They have 2+ to hit an assault. You can give them the RPG-6 hand grenades, and so having some AT-10 hitting tanks on the side on a 2,
Yes.
brilliant.
Yeah.
They have lots of core artillery support, and they have 3+ morale because you've got the commissar as
The
an
commissar.
extra element. And as a list build for the hero motor rifles, You have anti-tank, anti-aircraft, artillery, a couple of good, strong infantry companies, platoons,
Yeah.
and a third one, which I think is the SMG
Yeah.
assault
Yeah.
group. So as a force, there's a lot of stuff in that core element.
It is. It will never break. Almost.
It will be very difficult to break,
Yeah.
and you have to avoid the temptation of going minimum force with them to get all
Yeah.
the fancy stuff from the
Yeah.
supports.
From yeah.
But the good thing is you'll get at least 4 units. You'll always have a HQ, 2 rifle companies, and the mortars
Yes.
in
That
that.
is just
Yeah,
that's must pick, and then you can
Mhm.
top off
That's
with
right.
anything else
And
you like. Yeah.
3 points will get you 3 of the M15 the quadruple
Yeah.
50 caliber
Yeah.
half tracks,
AA. Yeah. Yeah.
mm.
Which is
which are also
good at
cool.
shoot. Yeah, they're cool, and they can deal with light tanks and
Well,
advancing infantry.
AG4,
Well,
yeah.
you get a lot of shots.
Well, you do, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And a little bit of luck will always see you right.
Yeah. 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 That's you have to plan with a little luck. You can be
Yeah, yeah.
be- best player in the world if you roll ones all the time. It really won't matter.
That was yesterday. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely yesterday. Um, infantry wise, though, like I said, there are a lot of really good or cool, fun options in the list. I really like the armored reconnaissance infantry.
Yeah.
The Rota Redzvetsky, I think,
Yeah.
would be the name for them.
Yeah.
They're veterans, 2+ to hit an assault. They come with M3 scout cars with 50 calibers, SMGs. They've got spearhead. Um,
But they
Downside,
lack the numbers, right? They're
they
not.
do, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
You
they
have to
do.
play a different style of Russians if you play them.
That is absolutely correct.
Yeah.
What are they? 5, 6
Yeah. I
stands?
think you could max out at 6. I
Mm,
think. Yeah. But
yeah, they do. They look fun though. That's
yeah.
that's the main thing. The last one for me too, and I always try and fit this unit into a list, but never ever does it make it, is the penal company.
Yeah.
Uh, I love the. It's it's one of those things. It was a horrible time, and these people were put into these units, and bad stuff happened to them. But as a game, they're quite fun. Um, there's a lot that they can do. Very high morale. They're a magnet for people to shoot at them because if they do get into assault, they can cause quite a bit of damage. They're quite large as a unit, um, and the main thing is that they're a distraction for other
Yeah.
things. Yeah, it takes me back to I don't know if you've ever read the old battle comics from the UK with Johnny Red.
Oh.
Some people might know it, but yeah, English flyer who ends up in Russia flying for the Russians. At one point in the story, he's knocked out, gets amnesia, and ends up in a penal company with a whole lot of real characters.
Yeah.
And that's what I keep thinking of, those 28 stands of
So,
convicts.
so the critical journalist here would ask. So it's fun, it's thematic, and why don't we see it? So what is it? Because nobody brings it, right? You would
No,
only use it. You would only bring it if you were playing thematic at home. You would never bring it to a tournament. And why is that?
if it was a core support, like if it was the option to swap out one of your core companies for a penal company, I would do it.
Yeah, you'd do it. Yeah.
If I want to fit the penal company into an infantry force, which is what I predominantly play,
Mhm.
it means I've got 3
It's
large-ish
yeah,
units,
yeah,
and because they're not core and they're not adding to my force morale, then they're extra, and that I can't think how many points they are, but it's
But
17
they're not
on.
cheap. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
not cheap.
I mean that's 4 Hero T-34s, or
Yeah,
another IS-2 for my platoon.
yeah,
I can
it
have
is.
five
Yeah,
of them. Yeah. So
and
yeah, I think if you were to turn up with them to a competition, you may catch people out with it because they're not used to um, facing them. But yeah, they aren't seen anymore, which is a shame because
it
the
is.
old blocking detachment and penal company troops from version 2, I think, were quite fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we got left? Command cards and recce units. So
What should we do
we
first,
have.
Ricky?
Let's look at recce. So
Reconnaissance.
Bagration. What's your must-take reconnaissance from the Bagration book?
Well, there's not many options for the Russians. So I don't think any of this is going to come as a surprise for listeners. There is the armored car, so the armored reconnaissance infantry platoon,
Yep. Yep.
which are quite good. Um, their mobility is not great as a vehicle. A wheeled vehicle has less mobility. Then you've got the BA-64,
Yep.
which is cheap. If you just want something that will give you spearhead in
Yep.
those very few times that you get to use spearhead,
Yep.
2 points for 3 tanks is great. And the anti-tank rifle on it, 84, does a job if you need to. But there is one for spearhead that I will. Yeah, it's the Panthers. It's the decoy tank company.
Yeah.
I feel sick talking about it. I had, like I said right at the start, I have every intention of playing as many Russian vehicles as possible, and I do quite often.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I played one game with the Panthers, and I was like, I can't even kid myself. This is so good. Why would I? Why would I not use them?
Yeah.
Uh, and I happened to have 3 German Panthers resin ones that I'd had for a long time, so I repainted them and used them, and haven't looked back. They are brilliant.
They're brilliant. So
Yeah,
they give you something else than spearhead. So
exactly. Yeah.
what do they give you that you
Oh,
can't
what
get
what
anywhere else?
else? Oh, what else? Well, frontal armor 9, rate of fire 2, AT-14. Um, they are a distraction for the IS-2s as well, because I think
Yeah.
people know that they're that good, that they sometimes prioritize those instead of the IS-2s.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're good and you're like my opponent, another Chris yesterday, you shoot the IS-2s first because the Panthers don't have the same ability to assault or
Yes.
be as aggressive as the IS-2s,
Yeah.
especially when they sit on top of a hill and they're just shooting things at
Yeah.
very long range. Yeah, it's like I said, I don't like it.
But they're
I
just
don't like it.
too good.
it like it's a love hate relationship. They just feel so good. They treat me so well.
It's the rate of fire too, isn't it? All of a
Yes.
sudden you actually hit stuff because you get the dice to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If
It's
you if your IS-2 was rate of fire 2, would you take the Panthers? You still take the Panthers.
yeah. Yeah, I would definitely think about it. The combination of their very good attributes as a vehicle with spearhead is something it's very hard to give up.
Yeah.
If your reconnaissance is Panthers with spearhead, don't worry about scout, just spearhead.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the opponent's is 2 little pumas or um, 250/9s or
Yeah.
bring gun carriers, then your Panthers are going to have a great day. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so that leaves us with command cards. The decoy is a command card, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have anything else in the command card
I
pile
do.
we have to take?
I have quite a lot. As I check my notes,
Yeah.
there's half a dozen that I've got listed that I really like. There are some really cool command cards in the Russian lists compared to some of the other nations. And there are the command cards that I look at are the ones that either neutralize a downside for your force or really doubles down and uh, ensures that the thing that you're trying to do happens. So there's a few to go through. One is lucky. I always take lucky. It's 1 point. Um, if you're if and I will always spend it re-rolling my first reserve die roll.
Yeah.
If I don't get reserves, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very important for the Russian lists to have as much of your stuff on the table as possible, as soon as possible. And the lucky die roll is always for that. If I get my reserves on the first turn, I feel really good, and I'll save
Yeah.
that re-roll for something else important later on. Normally, a last stand for my IS2s, so they don't run away because they're all bailed out, and I haven't
Yeah.
I haven't passed fearless morale tests to get back in. Um, Decoy Panthers, make your own luck is a
Yeah.
card for 1 point where you can discard the card for it to make any roll of 4+.
Yeah.
Um, in combination with a couple of other cards, it allows my T-34s not T-34s, my IS-2s to get through multiple sets of terrain to ensure that they counterattack if they don't win the
Yeah.
first assault. If there is one enemy target that absolutely has to have artillery drop on it, and it's on flat
Yeah.
terrain, so it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
got other short or tall terrain on it, then you've got a 4+. Yet
Yeah.
it's one of those cards that just makes things happen for you. You've got to remember you've got it in your card deck, though. I've forgotten it a couple of times, but that's just practice.
Yeah.
With that one, there's also the unditching logs, which is also 1 point. And that allows you to re-roll all cross tests for 1 turn for that unit when you discard the card. So IS2s again, because they've got a cross of 3+, and you might only be fielding 3 or 4 tanks from the unit, you want to get all of them in.
All in. Yeah.
So here's the big moment. I'm going to use unditching logs. I'm going to use make your own luck. I'm going to make sure that those 4 IS2s get into the assault. And that 4+ might be to ward off the one Panzerfaust shot that hits you in the flank. 8+4 is
Yeah. Yeah.
12.
It'll force a firepower test. Yeah.
Exactly, and then you're changing the odds from whatever it is down to 33% chance of being bailed out.
Yep.
So you can keep going. We mentioned the RPG-6 anti-tank grenades earlier. If I'm running the Sapper engineers, they're nice to have, but not mandatory, whereas the Panzerfaust are.
Yeah.
And then the last two cards, Partisan Guides, which is 1 point, and when you discard that card, you can add another die to your reserve rolls.
Yeah.
So on the first turn, you would have 2 die.
2. Yeah.
Which, if I've got that and lucky, then it's that ensuring my reserves are on as soon as possible.
Quickly. Yeah. At least you do all you can do to get them in the first turn. You'll
That's right.
Double the dice, and you'll get a third dice if you fail the 2.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. And the last one is Partisan Raid. Anything that stops your opponent's reserves turning up their first attempt
Yep.
is gold. There's been many times where I have planned a game, or in my head planned how I'm going to play the game,
Yep.
and I know that by turn 4 I will have won it
Yep.
because I've
Yeah.
got the ability to get on the objective, and as long as reserves don't turn up on their
You're
first die
golden.
roll, I will win. And the amount of times that the person goes, "Oh, look at that! It's a 6,"
Yeah.
and you just melt. Yeah.
Yeah.
So making them re-roll that is feels mean, but it's a valid thing to do.
It's a good tactic. Oh,
Yeah.
perfect. Well, Simon, thank you for taking us through your top picks from Bagration. It's been a pleasure seeing you and talking to you. So I hope you'll be back on the show, and I'm sure we will shortly.
Excellent.
So,
Thank you, Søren.